Welcome back to part 3. In this video series, we're going to be connecting an Allen Bradley PLC to an MIO-67 valve stack using Ethernet IP. We're going to explain the differences of Allen Bradley PLC firmware and connecting to our MIO-67 valve stack. We will be showing you how to import the provided EDS AOP file. We will also be starting a new PLC project and importing the CSV file that has been provided. So let's get started. First of all, let's talk about Allen Bradley PLC firmware. In the manual here, we have two sections that describe if you are using a PLC with version 19 or earlier firmware. You'll want to refer to this manual and use the generic Ethernet module method for configuring a connection to the MIO-67 device. In this video series, we're going to focus on PLCs that are version 20 or newer, which allows us to use the simple EDS AOP method. This AOP stands for add-on profile. In Allen Bradley, an EDS file can be used to import an add-on profile that makes it easier to configure an Ethernet IP connection. So let's get started configuring a new PLC project. Depending on what version of PLC you have, you're either going to be using RSLogix 5000 or Studio 5000. Both software packages are identical depending on what firmware version you're using for which PLC. In the case of this video series, we're going to be using RSLogix 5000, which I've already started here in the background. Let's set up a new PLC project. I'm going to be selecting File, New, and then selecting the type of PLC that I have. In this video demonstration, I'm using a 1769-L35E Compact Logix processor, which goes up to version 20. Firmware version 20 is the minimum PLC firmware required to use an EDS AOP, and that is the firmware that I have created. We can give this PLC project a name and say OK. After you've created your project, make sure that you've set up your I/O and everything that's associated with your PLC before continuing to this next step. The next step in this process is going to be importing the EDS file that has been provided. Inside RSLogix 5000 or Studio 5000 software, you should be able to go under Tools here and find the EDS hardware installation tool inside the software. If you cannot find the EDS hardware installation tool, you can also find it under the Start menu in Rockwell software. If we go to the Rockwell software tools and we go to RS Links, under RS Links tools, we will find the EDS hardware installation tool here installed separately. RS Links is a separate software package that is used to set up communication between your computer and the PLC. RS Links Classic is typically provided as a free installation tool, with your software package being Studio 5000 or RSLogix 5000. So let's go ahead and start the EDS hardware installation tool. You may have to give this software permission to run on your hard drive. Here's the startup window that you should see. This is Rockwell Automation's EDS wizard. Rockwell Automation is the parent company that owns Allen Bradley PLCs. We're going to connect next here and follow the wizard. What we're going to be doing is we're going to register a single EDS file that has been provided by Mac. If you do not have the EDS file, you'll want to go to the Mac Valves website and click on the Products link, and then click on the MIO-67 Fieldbus link. When you get to this page, you'll scroll down and click on Ethernet IP Resources. From here, download this link here, the MIO Ethernet IP Technical Documents and Configuration Files. Inside of this zip file, you will find the provided EDS file that you need to go on to the next step. We've already downloaded the EDS file onto our hard drive, so let's go ahead and click the next screen here. Here we're going to be following the wizard once again and registering a single file. And at this time, we need to have downloaded the EDS onto our hard drive and browse to that location. In this particular case, our location is already basically downloaded into this folder here and unzipped, ready to go. The EDS file should be called MacValve's MIO-67 EDS file. We'll go ahead and select that and say Open. And then click Next here. If the EDS file is valid, you will see a green checkbox here. This indicates that this file is not corrupt and ready to install. The next option is an icon that is provided. The icon is embedded in the EDS file. You can change the icon, however, you can use the one that's provided here that says Mac. This icon will be visible in RS links and all throughout Rockwell software products. Here we're going to be selecting the MIO-67 as the device that we want to register. Once the EDS file is registered in the EDS wizard, we can click Finish and then continue configuring our valve stack in our new project. Okay, so now that we have our EDS installed, we're going to go ahead in our sample project that we've started here and create our Ethernet IP connection. And on this particular PLC, we're using a 1769 L35E, which is a little bit older PLC, but we can click on the Ethernet port and right click on that and click on New Module. This will be the same process as any PLC, Compact Logix, Ethernet IP adapter that you might be using. And here we're going to click on New Module, which will bring up the AOP menu, which stands for Add-on Profile. And since we used an EDS file that creates an EDS AOP, we can go ahead and type in MIO-67 and we should find the MIO-67 in the add-on profile module list here. So we'll go ahead and click on that and hit Create. And this is going to ask us the tag name that we want to create. So we'll go ahead and call this Valve or Valves. You can give it any name that you want. This particular name here will become the controller tag name that this particular valve stack will be referenced in your PLC. We'll also need to go ahead and define our IP address that we declared earlier, which in this particular case we're using the default IP address of 192.168.1.25. All the other settings in here we can leave default. The RPI rate is the request for a packet interval rate between the valve and the Ethernet IP scanner card. In this particular case, there's a cyclical cycle that will happen every 10 milliseconds. Other settings in here are just going to be left alone by leaving them as default. We'll go ahead now and click OK to create the module connection, and we'll close the AOP window. You should see the MacValve's icon appear next to your device, and this indicates that your EDS file is properly registered. The next step in our process is going to be creating our descriptions for our controller tags. So by creating this Ethernet IP connection, it automatically creates controller tags that are associated with the valves that are in reference to this Ethernet IP connection. We have basically an input structure and an output structure, and also a configuration structure that we will want to add our descriptions for. In the zip file that we downloaded from the MacValve's website, there will be a CSV file that's included that we'll need to modify. You'll need Microsoft Excel to go in and modify this particular CSV file. We'll want to open this file here that's called Mac MIO-67 _ tag names. We'll go ahead and open this with Microsoft Excel. The default tag name inside this CSV file is valve_stack. And what we're going to want to do is do a file search and replace, or find search and replace, and make sure that we change the name that's the same as we call our tag name in here. So because we called our Ethernet IP connection just valves, we'll need to modify the CSV file and replace this. In Microsoft Excel, we'll want to go over here to click on the Find and Select tool and do a replace. We're going to be finding valve_stack. I highly recommend that you use the colon here as well. We're going to be replacing this with the tag name that we called it in our project here. Make sure that you get your spelling correct. Go ahead here and do a replace all. Once you've done that, close the Find and Replace window and save this CSV file. Go ahead and exit out of Microsoft Excel. And now we can go into the offline project and go to Tools, Import, Tags and Logic Comments. We'll want to browse to the location that we have the CSV file that we just edited. Here's our CSV file that I just edited. So we'll go ahead and click that and hit Import. When you import the descriptions, you can check to see if there were any errors or any problems here when you imported your descriptions. So let's go ahead and verify that by clicking on Controller Tags and expanding any of these input-output structures. Here you can see that the documentation imported properly because now we have descriptions documented for each of the inputs and output structure for our project. If you want to, you can go ahead and download your project into your PLC to verify that your connection is working properly. So we'll go ahead and click Download. Specifically, what we want to verify when we do a download is we want to check this I/O OK condition here. If this LED is blinking here in RSLogix or on the PLC, then there's a problem with the I/O configuration that we've done down here. If this status is a solid green light, this means that the PLC is properly communicating with the slave Ethernet IP device. You can also check on the properties and conditions of the slave by right-clicking on the icon and selecting Property. Here we can see that the status says Running. If there are any Ethernet IP problems, the problems and errors will be indicated here by the status. You may be tempted to want to go in and toggle valves on by going into Controller Tags, Valves, Data, and toggling the solenoid outputs here. However, these bits may or may not work depending on if the communication modules are configured. If you have any communication modules that are added on your valve stack, such as these that are pictured here, you'll need to tune into the next video to utilize the config AOI to set up and configure these modules. These modules must be configured in the PLC before we're able to toggle or operate any of the valves over here on the right side. This is a very important process to understand. Tune into the next video series to start working with add-on instructions.